I'm building a tiny office under my stairs because I desperately need it if I'm going to get any work done in my crazy house. I'll be revealing the final project to ex-Pittsburgh Steeler and famous YouTube woodworker John Malecki, and I've got a feeling that somehow I'm going to mess this up.
I messed up big time.
I make a lot of dumb choices in this video, with the first one being the tool I used to demo this wall. I spent the last 8 years as a professional man-child doing YouTube, so this is the tool I'm most familiar with for destroying things.
Yeah, there we go.
The beams under the stairs are really low, so it's gonna be tight. Gonna have to get creative with this one. Well, there's no going back now. Since leaving my previous YouTube company, Team Edge, and starting this channel about a year ago, which is basically like watching a chimp trying to woodwork, I've been doing all my computer work from our guest room, and like most people's guest room, over 90% of the time, it's unoccupied by guests. But recently, my beloved mother-in-law came to stay for a couple weeks, which meant I had to go to the less desirable option number 2, a camping table in our living room. Now we love having guests in our home, but it'd be great to find a spot that I can work from when they come to stay that's a little more legit. Because with 3 kids, things get noisy and distracting, so daddy's gotta focus. When my mother-in-law left, I was able to get back into my office.
Tracking stuff on my carpet.
I'm filming here.
But at this point in time, we had a big life change coming in the near future. My daughter was due in a month, and my mother-in-law was set to return.
I don't know about all this, yo.
But this time for longer, 3 weeks. Which I was looking forward to, but now I've got to figure out a solution. But the more I thought about it, I realized I just didn't really have a good spot in the house to go to that I could isolate myself in. Meanwhile, for the past few years, I've obviously been obsessed with DIY and have watched 100 videos about people installing things under their stairs, and have always dreamed of doing something like that myself. It took a while for those two thoughts to collide, but when they did, it was something epic. I was like, oh, cool. It seemed like a great solution. I need an office. It literally doesn't take up any room. In fact, it creates room out of thin air, and secretly I'd bring back a childhood dream of mine, to have a tiny fort in my house. Oh, come on, don't pretend like you don't want that too. Well, these beams are out, and I told my wife that no one is allowed on the stairs until I walk on them in a bit. You see how I'm sitting there? When I started to plan this project, I had no idea how uncomfortable I was going to be for months, because I didn't think of the fact that I'd be spending such an incredibly long time in a tiny box curled up like a contortionist in order to build this thing. In my last project, I made a table with a real waterfall coming off the side of it, which was awesome. You should definitely go check that out after this one. But I spent about 3 months bent over the side of that table, back throbbing because I have a core just about as strong as an apple's. And I thought that was hard on my back, but that was nothing compared to the strain on my back in this project. I think for the next couple projects, I'm not going to choose anything that's going to fold me in half like this. Hopefully I can make it somewhat comfortable to be in, but I also need to make it easy to get in and out of because that's proven to be difficult. I think I'm going to have to figure out a solution that'll make it so I don't need to get on my hands and knees to get in this thing. Right now it's looking pretty rough. Can't believe I'm going to reveal this to John Malecki. What have I got myself into? More on him later. Did I get you on that one? After I had the idea for this project and the initial excitement leveled out a bit, reality set in. I started to second guess this thing. First, there was the thought that if somebody eats one too many chimichangas and walks on this thing while I'm under it, it could crush me.
I'm not giving up on this, and neither should you.
Then someone suggested that it might reduce the value of my home, but really my main concern was something else. Just that I didn't think I could do it. Sure, I could blow the wall out under the stairs and stick a beach chair in there. That'd be easy. But there ain't no settling for easy on this channel. And I felt like what I wanted was a little too ambitious for my current skill level.
Daddy, are you being working really hard?
What's that?
He's working really hard.
I am working really hard.
If you saw my last video, you know what I'm talking about. I made mistake after mistake. So I was hesitant on whether I should do this or not because of the fact that I'd probably just mess it up under a pile of mistakes. And I don't know what it is with me, but I make a lot of them. So if I didn't end up doing this project, there was only one other option, finding an office to rent. And let me tell you, that brought about a strange coincidence. Somehow, magically, when I brought up the idea of working away from home, my wife suddenly fell in love with the stairs idea. Jokes aside, she actually did love the idea and encouraged me to do it. She wasn't worried at all about me making mistakes, which gave me a moment of foolish courage. So I watched some YouTube videos on how to fortify stairs, thought it might reduce our home value, but if this thing looks really awesome, maybe it'll raise it. I set a hilariously optimistic build schedule. Somehow, I was under the impression that I would build this thing in 3 weeks. So I shot a hole in the wall and got to work.
I don't know how I'm gonna work under the stairs for the next month. My back.
If you were to tell me that I'd spend as long as I did hunched up in a tiny little box, I'd have said, I'm not on Team Edge anymore, and I'd have politely spat in your face. If you aren't familiar with Team Edge, that's my previous channel where we did nothing but build all sorts of crazy contraptions and crazy stuff to have fun with and play games.
We're doing a YouTube video. Yeah!
Yeah! Right there, baby. Yeah!
That was one of the most fun times of my life, but after 8 years, it was time to say goodbye and move on to the next thing. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Joey, and this is ManMade, a channel all about building toward one of the dopest workshops you've ever seen and using it to create awesome stuff. This is what I've been passionate about for the past 5 years, and it's always been a dream of mine to start a channel like this. I explained my whole story in the first video, but to add to it, I've always loved creating things, and Team Edge was something that really allowed that passion to blossom. Every week was something new and insane, and I had so much fun inventing new things and doing things that have never been done before, and that's something I want to bring to this channel. If you're looking to watch things like how to make a plywood cabinet, those channels are super useful, but this isn't that. This channel is about creativity and making things that have never been done before. That's what I'm passionate about and what I love to share with others. If that sounds great to you, then you should subscribe, and not because I need a favor, but because I think this will provide you value. You have my permission to unsubscribe the moment it stops doing that. But anyways, I'm excited to have this project in my home as a reminder of the core of my channel, creativity. I hope that every time I use it, I'm reminded of this channel's purpose. So what is creativity? Creativity is all about combining things in new ways to provide value, whether that's through beauty, provoking thought, or solving a problem. And I think this project will actually achieve all that. And it's not only a project that's creative in and of itself, but it's also something that fuels creativity, because it provides me with a place that I can escape and let my mind wander and dream. If you're wondering how to stimulate your creativity, it's always helpful to change your environment, and that's what this is for me. It's not a place where I'm going to work most of the time. It's a place that I can escape to focus, and hopefully allow God to bring me inspiration for this channel.
Why did I do that? That was the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Speaking of inspiration, someone who has been a big inspiration for this channel is John Malecki. Here's a bit about him. After leaving the NFL as an offensive lineman on the Pittsburgh Steelers, Malecki jumped into the world of woodworking, eventually starting a woodworking YouTube channel, which now has over 1 million subscribers and 150 million views.
Left the screws in there. Oh my goodness, are you serious?
I personally have been watching his channel for years, so the fact that this is coming full circle is pretty cool, and I'm excited to show him what I'm building. I've got a little challenge for him set up as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. This fan install was not near as seamless as it looks in this video. That's for your entertainment. After the install, it wasn't working. I won't bore you with the details, but that made it so I had to go to Home Depot a couple times. In fact, I went to Home Depot a lot during this project. Like a lot. Home Depot doesn't sponsor this video, but it's one heck of an ad for them. This video is actually sponsored by Mr. Cool, and you can get Mr. Cool AC units at Home Depot, but that's beside the point. At the end of this project, I'm going to tally up just how many times I went to Home Depot, and I think you just might be astonished.
Let's see how we did. Big money, please, please, please work. Look at all that dust coming through.
But while I was at Home Depot, I did something I'm not proud of. I asked for help finding something, but that's not what I'm talking about. The help that came was a teenage girl. And I'm sorry to say my first thought was, come on, can't an old guy just help me? But to my shame, I told her what I needed, and she led me right to it. I am truly and deeply remorseful. Anyways, I spent an entire day trying to fix that fan, and I'm starting to think that I was right about not being ready for this project. Turns out the blade was just stuck on the side. I have to say, the order in which I did the different parts of this project was asinine. If I was skilled, I'd have started from the back and worked my way out of the room. That way I wouldn't have to climb past stuff to get to the back, but that's not what I did. Instead, as you'll see in this video, I worked on some projects in the back of the tiny little room, and then I worked on some in the front of it that blocked the back, and I just kept going back and forth. But working on the stuff in the front made it really difficult because I had to contort myself into the tiny little room to get to the back. This is an example of a time that I skipped to a fun part of the build to the detriment of future Joey. What I'm building here is my solution for how I'm going to get into the tiny office without having to get on my hands and knees to crawl in. Because let's be honest, if getting into that thing shows me even the slightest resistance or is just a little too hard, I'll probably never use it. This board I'm using here isn't your average plywood. This is walnut veneered plywood. If you don't know what plywood is, here's a little crash course sentence. It's a bunch of really thin slices of wood, cross-hatched for strength and glued together. It's pretty much that simple. And if you don't know what veneer is, it's an even thinner slice of wood. So this is walnut veneered plywood, meaning there's a slice of walnut the thickness of a vegan's bicep glued to the outside of this regular piece of plywood. And man, is it expensive. A regular slice of hardwood plywood costs around $85, and adding these little paper-thin slices of walnut to this board bumped up the price to $250 a piece. I bought 2 boards for this project and plan on using all of it. I do not want to buy any more, so I really need to be smart with how I use it. Today is a sweltering 105-degree day, and this glue-up's got me feeling stressed. But I'll say this, I'm not hot. Thanks to Mr. Cool and the DIY mini split AC that I installed in my garage in my very real, not at all a set backyard here. It may be hot outside, but inside, well, let's just say I've been considering wearing an extremely thin cardigan. So big thanks to Mr. Cool for sponsoring this video. This is the only true DIY mini split option on the market due to their patented pre-charged refrigerant lines, so there's no professionals required. The only thing that's required is a couple tools, and after installation, again, a light cardigan or maybe even one of those fleece vests my grandpa used to wear, or not, because it's also a heater for all those cold winters. I genuinely don't know how long this channel would last with the California summers and no AC. I might have died, guys. You know what? Mr. Cool saved my life. Okay, too much.
That's scary. I shouldn't have done that.
This thing will cut your normal operating costs because of its variable speed DC inverter compressor. It has a 7-year compressor and 5-year parts warranty. And you know what? I could tell you all the technical jargon, but here's what you need to know. Easy, cheap, and it'll freeze your buns off. So go get you one with the link in the description. I'm always on the hunt for the perfect wood finish. Well, I think I've found it, and this isn't it. The biggest issues with most wood finishes can usually be summed up into a few different complaints. Too hard and time-consuming to apply, full of nasty chemicals, and not durable enough. This is lacquer. It dries pretty fast, and it's somewhat easy to apply. But there are a few downsides to it. It's not super durable, contains some pretty nasty chemicals, and it can be somewhat time-consuming to apply. I just had this stuff on hand, so I used it. I went through 4 cans of this stuff here, and each can is like $12. It's especially not suitable for large projects. I thought this was the best option on the market, but later on, I found a finish that I feel solves all those problems and cures in an astounding 2 minutes. I started this project before my baby daughter was born, hoping to get it done before she came, so that I could be out of the house and not making noise and bothering my wife. Instead, I decided to make a lot of mistakes and take forever. At this point, my daughter is 3 weeks old and napping in the family room, so I had to swap out my impact driver for the quieter drill. I do something dumb and dangerous in a minute. Hopefully Maleki doesn't watch this part of the video. I drill into the concrete to fasten these to the ground. Some of you, like I didn't, because this guy was woefully unready to take on this project, might know why that's a potentially dangerous thing. But real quick, I'm adding these spacers between the drawer slides and the ground because when I tried to put the platform in, I realized that the carpet is sitting an inch over the ground and it wouldn't slide out the way I had it. And I ended up cutting the spacers the wrong size, and who would have guessed it? I had to go get some more pressure-treated lumber at Home Depot. Then I came back and realized I needed longer screws than what I had. So guess what? Yeah, that's right. After I fully secured this thing to the ground, I told my neighbor Brian to come check it out. I told him what I did with the drawer slides, and he said, "Oh, scary." Well, apparently the concrete slab on his house, like my house, is post-tensioned, meaning that after they pour the concrete, they pull cables that were previously placed in the concrete super tight. And it basically puts the concrete under tension, kind of like pants give you a muffin top. And if you sever one of those cables, they can basically explode. Well, I'm happy to say there were no concrete muffin top explosions here, so that's nice. Kind of freaked me out, but after I learned a little bit more about the process and noticed that the 2x4s that I ripped off the floor at the beginning of the video were nailed in the concrete with nails that were shot through with a .22 caliber bullet, I think I'm probably fine. Plus, I didn't drive those screws deep enough to hit anything. Escaped that one by the skin of my teeth. My tools may have been noisy, but I think I've found something noisier. My 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and 4-month-old. Between the 3 of them, there's a lot of just about every type of noise you can possibly imagine. I absolutely love it, but while I'm trying to work, it can be a bit distracting. So this office couldn't be coming at a better time. I don't understand it at this point, but apparently I did something wrong here. These drawer slides I installed aren't parallel. You know what problem that causes? Don't worry, you will. At this point, I'm starting to get a little nervous that this tiny office isn't a realistic option for me if after just 30 minutes in there, I start making noises like Emperor Palpatine. But I think it was just the way I was situated there. Hopefully that's okay. We'll see.
Hi, Daddy.
Hey, dude. Okay, people. All the slides are on. It is now time for the weight test. My weight. We're gonna see how much this thing flexes. Supposedly, each one of these slides is supposed to hold 250 pounds. We're gonna see if that's true. Well, it's holding its own weight good. Fourth thing out. I see some flex. I see some flex. Oh, I'm scared. Okay. Okay. It's holding. There's a good amount of flex, but it's holding. That's great. Well, that's great news.
The fact that this thing bottoms out when you step on it is actually perfect for me, because I need to step on it and not get my feet pulled out from under me. That was a good error, but what you're about to see isn't. This is when I realized that I didn't put the drawer slides on parallel with one another. They aren't rolling smoothly, and neither is this project. And since I didn't buy drawer drags, I wasn't super satisfied with the way this turned out.
Why is that so difficult? That's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to figure out a solution for how draggy those drawer slides are. I don't think I'm gonna use this thing very often. If I have to yank it out and pull it back in, I think it's gonna be difficult. So, I don't know, maybe I can motorize it or something.
Don't get your hopes up, I definitely didn't motorize it. I looked into it and it was way too expensive and slow.
Oh, what? I forgot the outlet. Moron.
No, I'm a smart man. I'm not a moron. Don't treat yourself like that, Joe.
This is acoustic slat wall. Not only does it add a lot of cool factor to the room, cool factor, could I sound any more like a dad? Whatever. It also adds soundproofing, which when you're in a tiny box is kind of an important thing. Adding this slat wall on was one of those instances when I really regretted my PEMDAS. I had to install all this stuff while sitting on a drawer slide, and when you have a life-threatening case of grandpa butt, that can get pretty uncomfortable. I said earlier I want to build toward one of the coolest workshops ever, and I need your input how we can do that. I've got a couple upgrades that are coming next video that I'm excited about, but I want your creative suggestions. This lasts a few seconds, but in reality takes a ton of time. I need to button up my behavior if I'm going to reveal this thing to John. In a moment, like I did in my last video with 4 Eyes Furniture, I'm going to FaceTime John, and I'll set up a little challenge with him. He doesn't really know what's going on and what I'm building, so I'm excited. At the point of this recording, it was May 31st, which was a big day for me. It was the release of this channel's first video. So I had a little giddy up in my step, but as you can see here, I had already started my 3rd project before releasing my very first video. So I was gritting my teeth because I really had no clue how it'd perform and if months and months of work would amount to only 45 views. But I'm thankful to say that it actually went really well, thanks to all of you guys. Another Home Depot run today, folks. I'm starting to understand what Home Depot represents for me. Failure. In fact, I think I'm gonna call it Home Uh-oh from now on. Looking back at my trips to the orange store, I realized that all my purchases are the result of not knowing what I'm doing. So I guess that if I don't go to Home Uh-oh at all for a project, it means that I've made it and that I was perfectly equipped. That's what I aspire to. That's the goal. And the Home Depot tally just keeps adding up.
Yes. What's up, dude?
Joey, my dude, what's up?
How you doing?
I am good.
What are you up to?
I just got off doing a bunch of organizational stuff on the computer, and I walked out here to talk to your hands.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. I wanted to set up a little challenge here because I'm setting up what I'm doing here. I'm not gonna.
It's very small, right?
Yeah, it's very small. That's right. I'm gonna give you a sneak peek of what I'm doing. You're not gonna tell me what you think I'm doing because it's kind of hidden a little bit. And then when I call you right before the final reveal, you're gonna tell me what you think I'm doing. And if you are able to guess it correctly, you get a free sponsorship of your latest product. And I will be buying some to give out to my audience.
All right.
Well,
Let's see this fucker then.
So, here's what I've been doing. I blew out underneath my stairs. You can't guess what it is now. You have to guess on the next call. This is all you get to see.
Oh. All right.
All right.
I dig it, dude. I have envied those who have room under their staircase in their home because there's so many cool things you could do there, and we both have little kids. So I'm pretty intrigued right now.
Do you think you know what it is?
See what you do with it. I've got a few ideas.
All right. Sounds good. All right, well, I will see you in hopefully a couple weeks. If it's longer than that, then something's gone seriously wrong.
Well, I hope for your health and your sanity that does not happen, and I look forward to seeing what you get done, buddy.
As do I. Talk to you later. Peace. Challenge is on. Peace to you.
When I originally measured to see if I could fit inside this tiny office and not have the computer monitor too close to my face, I had a bit of an oversight. I measured myself sitting on the floor, but I have to keep adding stuff. I added the platform and will have to add my chair, and that adds thickness and brings me closer to the ceiling. So my goal for this is to make it as low profile as possible. I'd love to sit on a big comfy cloud, but I'd probably end up having to look at my screen from 1 inch away at that point. But it's for the best, because making it too comfy combined with the fact that I have to lie down while I'm in it is a recipe for a day spent napping. And while nothing in the world sounds better at this point, I've got a family to feed. I was so eager to install this thing that I didn't even put a finish on it beforehand, and I did that knowingly. Why did I do that? I just get really excited and skip crucial steps that I know I'll have to come back to later. When future Joey says, "Stop, do it right," present Joey just flicks future Joey in the nose and keeps going. That's called willing inadequacy, folks. It's almost always better to finish your parts before assembly.
Yeah! Yeah!
In order for this tiny office to work and for me to be able to be far enough away from the screen, like I said before, this has to be a zero gravity desk. That's a real thing, look it up. Problem is, if I'm lying down in here, the platform can't slide out because the chair will hit the door frame. So I had to figure out a solution, and here it is. Gas struts. When you apply enough weight to them, they compress. They're all different weight ratings. I tried 10 pound, 15 pound, 22.5 pound, 35 pound, and 45 pound struts, but I ended up on the 10 pound struts. I needed just enough strength to lift the chair, but not so much that my weight won't compress it.
Yeah, buddy, that's it. Oh, time to get out.
My thinking was that I'd attach pillows to this thing for the upholstery, but it looks pretty dumb, so I gotta figure out a better option. Who needs a hard wax oil finish when you've got a head wax oil finish? I'm starting to think that ChatGPT is trying to manipulate me, and I need to know what you guys think. I used it for calculating the angles for the triangle base here that I'm gonna put under my legs, and it gave me the answer, but first had to show off all the math that it did to reach that conclusion. And what it showed me was either some genius level stuff or complete and total nonsense. There's the possibility that ChatGPT is trying to overcomplicate this to make me think that I can't live without it, but there's also the possibility that the math involved for this project is so above my pay grade that I should just put my tail between my legs, run away, and never come back. And then there's the possibility that ChatGPT is just plain wrong, which I've experienced many times before, so we'll see. But here's the math that it did for me to figure out the angles for this base. I thought about calculating this on my own, and when I saw this, I was confused about life for a solid 3 days. Most of the math that kids have to learn these days is probably something they'll never use later in life, but I gotta say, there's a fair amount of math involved with woodworking. And I think I'm just gonna have to try to figure it out on my own from now on instead of using ChatGPT. I once tried to have ChatGPT make me a cut list for an end grain cutting board, and I blindly trusted it. Don't know why, and I think it trolled me because what I ended up with was more the size of a drink coaster.
It's not even close. What?
And once again, ChatGPT has led me astray. Never again. But there's the possibility that I made a mistake with my cuts. Hey math nerds, can you proofread what ChatGPT gave me and see who was wrong? Not sure if you saw it, but I just decided to ditch the base because I realized I don't even need it. Today I had to go to Home Depot and decided to embarrass myself. I forgot my wallet, so I had to go back to my car and find something to pay with. All I could find was checks. I felt like a huge moron as I had to hunker down while holding up the line and write a check. Then when I gave it to the cashier, she was super confused and didn't even know what to do with it. Been a while since I've had to do that. I'm not even going to tell you when, but at an upcoming point in the video, I use John's product, quite a bit actually, that I may or may not have to promote. Not going to tell you though, because he hasn't won the sponsorship by guessing what I'm making. We'll see if you can spot it, it's pretty obvious. I didn't really pay attention to the way I attached these pieces here, and it comes back to bite me. But on another note, when I sit down on this base, you might notice it doesn't fit my legs perfectly, and that was all according to plan. I'm used to living life on furniture that's way too small for me, so that's no problem. I wanted to make sure that if any normal people ever sat down on this chair, they could fit as well.
I messed up big time. I put a screw in, then I sunk everything in, so this is kind of permanent unless I want to rip it out. And now this happens. And I can't go any further. It's a big mess. I can't reach under and cut it with a grinder or something because it's like directly in between the drawer slide. There's no way I can get to it unless I take everything apart.
I didn't know what else to do, so I went with the old rip it out method, and that actually worked surprisingly well. I thought this was going to be a big problem, but since I was able to just pry the side off, it was a pretty easy fix.
There's your problem. All right, that works. All right.
I forgot to tell you about my genius fix for the drawer slides being really difficult to move. Want to hear it? Here it is. Nothing. It just went away on its own as things stretched and flexed over time. So cool. That may have been an insignificant challenge, but in all this time, I've been dreading a challenge that I know will be my biggest yet. I need to make sure this is a functional office. One of an office's greatest features is its isolating nature. When I work, I need complete isolation, and having only 3 walls ain't great for that. So I need a door. This is the first thing people will see when they look at this office, and speaking from experience, doors look easy, but are somewhat complicated. In an old ManMade video, that's what this channel used to be, we replaced one of my doors with a secret door bookshelf. Well, ManMade ended, my son took over that room, and we wanted a real door. So I decided to install it myself, and let's just say it wasn't as easy as it looks. So I'm a bit intimidated by the thought of adding one under the stairs. Been researching and bought all the necessary parts, so I'm ready. I just want to caution you, what you're about to see is embarrassing and just confirms my fears. I spent way too long trying to figure out this little corner piece. Killed an hour on this thing. Broke-did my brains, so I moved on to this. Moving in and out of here on the platform wasn't as thoughtless as I wanted it to be due to the fact that I have to stop myself in the exact right spot for where the chair needs to recline. So this is a stop, so I can just pull myself until I come to a smooth stop. And now we've come to boss number 1. This is the one that really got me. After cutting the parts for it, I don't have any walnut plywood left that would fit this door. So if I mess this up, it's gonna cost me at least $250, which isn't an option right now because I'm over budget. I'm actually negative on plywood because there was a lot more I wanted to do with it. Think I'll have to find a different lumber option for the other stuff I want to make for this. So let's jump into the craziness with mistake number 1. I used this little angle measuring device and didn't realize that whatever number I got, I needed to divide by 2 because I'm trying to fit 2 boards together to make that angle. So I got somewhat of an obese angle, but not to worry. After a little brain work, I realized my mistake and immediately fixed the issue. But it didn't end there. When I put it back down, the board was magically 2 feet too short. I genuinely have no clue what happened here.
What?
At that point, I decided to sleep on it and jump back in the next day. I made so many mistakes that I can't even keep track of what happened. Here is what I do know. Both boards ended up being too short, and I didn't have any more walnut plywood, so I did what no woodworker would ever want to do and extended the boards using some offcuts, leaving some beautiful joints exposed for everyone to see right in the middle of the boards. Yet somehow, the board was still too short.
What? That is so far off. What?
And I had to extend it yet again with some offcuts. I'm now sure I was right about not being ready for this project. And if all that wasn't enough, I ran into my other nemesis, the tiny triangle.
What is going on, dude? My brain.
After looking at this corner, I should have just extended the pieces all the way and cut off the ends. Then, off camera, I exploded a piece with my miter saw and had to take it apart and fix it. That one took me a couple hours to figure out.
I'm done. Good night.
Let's pause and zoom in for a second. Look at this Frankenstein joint. This thing's gonna be on the outside and will probably be the very first thing people see when they look at the office. Let's count how many intersections there are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Beautiful. This is what I'm talking about, y'all, but I'm here now and have to figure out a solution for this. Otherwise, this thing's gonna look like it was made by a 4th grader after recess, or I'm just gonna have to drywall over the entire hole and pretend it never happened. I don't know what I'm gonna do to fix that joint. I'm just gonna keep going on the rest of the door and think on that for a while. Wood expands and contracts a lot, and plywood doesn't do it that much, but I still need to cover my bases. I'm cutting these grooves so that the glass can float inside. If the wood expands and contracts, the glass, which doesn't, will be able to move with it inside the frame. It would really stink to have to show John the project with that joint on it. But honestly though, he'd probably be pretty encouraging regardless. I met John at a YouTuber event at Dude Perfect headquarters and told him about the fact that I was going all in on this channel, and he wanted to help in any way he could. And as I've gotten to know him a bit more since then, that's always been the case. Man, I wish I had the finish that I used later in this video. It'd have saved me so much time. I spent way too long on this door. I originally thought it'd take less than a day, but it took a lot longer. It actually ended up taking over 4 days. So I'm not even looking at the calendar anymore because there's no use. Looking at this door, I'd have thought I'd made a right triangle, but it in fact doesn't. So I had to cut the acrylic accordingly. They say you can cut acrylic with a box cutter, but I don't think they were talking about this stuff. This is 1/4 inch acrylic. Thick stuff. I wanted it thicker because the thin acrylic has a tendency to warp and bow, and you can really see that in the reflection, which would look cheap. After scoring myself a line, I used my angle grinder, but the metal cutoff disc would just melt the plastic, and it felt like it made it even stronger, so I wised up and used my plastic cutting blade on there, and that cut it like butter. Having the correct blade for what you're cutting makes all the difference. I decided to go with shower door hinges here, but they didn't work as is. They're made for glass that's less than 1/4 inch thick, so I had to modify them a bit and use longer screws. Hopefully they work well and can handle the weight of the door. I'm going to try and keep as much plastic on this acrylic here for as long as possible. Need to make sure that when the time comes for the final reveal to John and to you guys that it's not covered in fingerprints, boogers, and saliva. The time has come for me to come to a decision about what I'm going to do with that terrible corner joint on the end of the board. It's been a day or two and I really had to rack my brain because I'm not going to settle for junk, and I really don't want to have to buy more walnut plywood and somehow spend another 3 days making a new door. Not an option, so I gotta figure this out. I really was convinced that I messed this door up with that joint, but after much thought, I think I actually have a pretty good fix that might work well. But first I have to fully finish that ugly joint by figuring out that little triangle. I don't know why that triangle was so hard before, because this time it took 30 seconds. So here's my fix for the corner joint. Hopefully it works. Since this is kind of an eyesore, I've decided to make it stick out even more. Since I can't make this flaw disappear, I'm gonna hide it in plain sight. I'm removing 2/100ths of an inch from this plywood so that whatever I cover it with can sit flush with the plywood. So this is it, a super thin sheet of brass. If you put 50 of these things together, it'd only be 1 inch thick. I really like the look of brass, and I think it goes well with the masculine aesthetic that I've planned. To be honest, I probably wouldn't make as big of a deal about how this looks if I wasn't putting this on YouTube. And it's not because I care too much about what people think, but it's really just about wanting to give you guys my all. If you're choosing to watch this video and give me your attention, I'm not going to take that for granted. Out of thankfulness to you, I want to show you that I value that. And if I take shortcuts on stuff or don't give you a quality product, then I'm not valuing your time. Since this stuff is so thin, I barely put any pressure on those clamps because I didn't want it to create any divots, especially since brass is so reflective. I'm going to be leaving the plastic on this stuff as well for as long as possible to prevent boogers and scratches. I made sure to cut the piece oversized so that it'll sit flush after I take my router to it. Looking at it now, that brass T-tail actually turned out pretty dang cool. Funny how I only ended up with it because of that mistake earlier. But now it looks like it's meant to be there, like it was always part of the plan. Kind of pulls this whole thing together, gives it that extra bit of character, the cherry on top. Honestly, if I hadn't messed up, I'd never even thought to try it. I guess sometimes you just stumble into something better, even when it feels like you're screwing up. Now, I'm not under the impression that I'll be able to improve everything just by making mistakes, because I probably just got lucky on this one, but I'll take it. Things went sideways and actually ended up working in my favor, but I can't guarantee that's always going to happen. Hopefully it's smooth rolling from here on out so I can finish this thing. Speaking of smooth, I want getting into this space to be as smooth and thoughtless as possible. These are just a couple more hard stops to ensure that I don't have to think or be gentle when I'm getting inside the tiny office. So now I can lean back without worrying about going too far or breaking anything. You may think I'm done talking about the door fiascos. Well, I'm not, because so much more was left on the cutting room floor. Home Depot, once again, ran out of drywall texture. When I first installed this door, none of the gaps that around it looked even. Since I didn't put much thought into it when I put the trim around the frame beforehand, it was anything but straight. So to fix it, I removed all the trim and reattached it with shims to make sure the door gaps looked even all around. Then I realized I had another problem. The door dragged pretty heavily on the carpet, so I took it to my table saw, but the brass triggered my saw stop, which put it out of commission for over a week. After going back and forth a few times, I finally got it to work. I try to collect all the scraps of lumber that friends and family don't want. This is a hand-me-down standing desk for my brother. This top here is actually from IKEA. Ran out of walnut ply, so this is perfect. I put styrofoam that I got from Home Depot underneath it. It works to fully support every part of the wood and protects your workbench from getting cut up. So what am I making here? I want my tiny office to be the epitome of the term built-in. I want to feel like a bird nestling into his nest, if the nest was made of fancy hardwood lumber. Even though I did a pretty poor job of fully planning this build out, I want it to look like every piece was intentional rather than being pieced together. That's why I went with this piece. This is going to be my built-in side table. And when I tried to get it in there, my poor planning came back to bite me. It would have been so much easier if I had just done this part before I blocked the entrance here. I made the mistake of doing the platform first, which was dumb, because it makes it really hard to build anything behind it. So I'm not doing that anymore. In a couple minutes, I have one big final challenge that tries to wreck this project, and I am feeling a little bit better after the win with the door, but I'm not out of the gate yet. I'm hoping that I can finish this thing up quickly and seamlessly. I'm really hoping that this project turns out cool and doesn't have that one flaw on it that just looks terrible and grabs everybody's attention and is all they can think about. You know, like when you're talking to the person with the giant mole and that's all you can think about? Surprise! I made a mistake without realizing it. I covered up the electrical switch with the side table, so now I can't turn my light off and on. I ended up buying a wireless switch to put on top of that side table, which is okay, I guess, because I prefer not to have to reach behind me to turn on the light. These shelf brackets haven't always looked this good. In fact, they showed up to my doorstep looking a little more gold than brass. I had to hit the home uh-oh yet again for some spray paint to fix that. I won't be sitting on this chair for hours on end when people come to visit our home if I have to sit on plywood all day. Remember, grandpa butt. So this is it, the final boss. If I can finish this step and not screw it up like almost everything else, I'll have escaped scot-free and I'll have a pretty awesome office under my stairs. My buddy Jake, the miter saw guy, gave me the idea for this one, but my initial execution here leaves a lot to be desired. One of the tools that I use a lot more than I thought I would in my shop is this layout divider. It makes it so I can quickly and accurately create marks evenly spaced apart. Sometimes when you have to use a ruler for something like that, it sounds straightforward, but any small amount you're off when you're marking just compounds as you go further and further along. The idea is that I'll attach the upholstery to this board and then somehow affix the board to my chair. But things don't exactly go my way. I bought this little 12-volt Milwaukee stapler just for this, and I'm really glad I did because I ended up sinking probably, 400 staples. I think my hand would have broken after that, and the process would have taken a lot longer. The stapler worked, but not perfectly. The beauty of this thing is that it can use staples that are only a 1/4 inch thick, so they don't go through the other side of the plywood. This is my first foray into Milwaukee's 12-volt line, and I didn't want to pay the extreme prices they charge for batteries, so I found some off-brand ones on Amazon for an extreme price reduction. A 2-pack of the off-brand batteries on Amazon was $21. The closest thing you can find to that at Home Depot is $120 more than that. I'm assuming that the cheapo batteries are a significant reduction in quality, but they worked, so I'd say it was worth it. By now you may be thinking, those staples are pretty visible, bro. Don't worry, I planned for this. Yeah, no, I definitely didn't plan for this. My original thinking was that the cushions would be a lot larger and hide those staples more, but since I couldn't add a ton of thickness due to the fact that I don't want to be too close to the screen, the leather had to be pulled pretty taut. I didn't really realize that this was going to happen, but once I started stapling, there was really no going back. But don't worry, after I'm done stapling this thing, you'll realize that the staples kind of just blend in and you can't even really see them. My first attempt at upholstery work for a nice change of pace is actually going pretty well. Psych, this is garbage. It looks like some unruly children were left unattended in their dad's office for too long. John's gonna have a field day with this. This was the confirmation that I needed that this project was a bit too lofty for me. And I just realized that unruly child is me. Wah, wah, wah. You know what? I'm gonna stop whining, because that door fiasco turned out awesome, and it was all because of my mistakes. So I'm gonna go ahead and figure out how to make the best of this and not let it ruin my project. But for your entertainment, I'm gonna film my wife's reaction to seeing this, because she's been excited about seeing this part of the build. Now, she's a very nice and encouraging person, but if there's one thing I know about my wife, is that she doesn't lie. Don't worry, I've got the aloe vera prepped and ready for the burns. So if those staples are so visible and it looks so bad, why am I still going? Because I feel like every time I've made a mistake, I'm able to figure out a way to fix it. If I redid a project every time I made a mistake, I'd never complete a single project. Gotta figure out a way to make it work and make the best of it, and I think I can do just that. Not to pat myself on the back here or anything, but I do think I did something perfectly with this chair. The amount of padding. It's a great balance between being comfy but not too comfy. Obviously, if it was too uncomfortable, I wouldn't last very long in that office, but at the same time, if it's too comfortable, I won't last too long staying awake. And that's probably the biggest concern of mine regarding this project, the fact that I'll probably fall asleep a lot in this office, but hey, when in Rome, am I right?
Ooh. I like the concept, not your best embroidery work. Are you also putting one in between so that your booty doesn't just like sit on the
Yeah,
card?
I just sat down on it and I realized I need a booty cushion.
Okay. Did you want me to be like, oh, it's amazing, I love it?
No, I knew you were gonna tell me the truth. I appreciate it.
It's just not what I thought. You were all excited to show it to me because you were like so.
Well, I think it looks halfway cool.
It does.
In a moment, you're going to see what's by far my new favorite wood finish. I was watching a YouTuber named Stumpy Nubs, love the name by the way, and he was talking about a revolutionary new wood finish that he found that cures within 2 minutes. And that's not super common, but it didn't end there because this finish pretty much solves most of the problems woodworkers have with finishes. It is also non-VOC, so it doesn't have a bunch of harmful chemicals in it, and it's incredibly durable. I made sure to book to the site before they sold out and managed to snag some up. So how does this finish cure within 2 minutes? With this. This is ultraviolet light, and the finish is UV cured resin. This stuff is called Clean Armor. If you're interested, I'll link the site down below. I have to say, I'm pretty excited about the solution. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And you know what? I'm glad this mistake happened too. Gave me an opportunity to do what this channel's all about. Be creative. I think John's going to love it when I FaceTime him in a few minutes. These wood strips completely cover up the table and add a really unique flair to the chair that I haven't seen on another chair, and again, it was all because of a mistake. I'm realizing that with being a novice, I have an advantage over a lot of professional makers. More mistakes. If they don't make as many mistakes, they don't have as many opportunities to have these cool features. If you're wondering, I did a test piece to see if flexible CA glue would work, and it worked really well. Also, there's the booty cushion. I needed to create a way for the monitor to move out of the way when I get in and out, and you'll never believe how many monitors I went through to get to this point. Okay, well, you might, but it's a lot. I started by installing an old monitor from Team Edge that I kept from when we shut down, and for some reason that no longer worked. But not to worry, I had a second of the exact same one. Only problem was that one didn't work either, so I bought a couple to test, installed one of those, and realized that since this monitor was so close and it was only 1080p, I could see all the individual pixels. So I had to take that out, and I bought a couple more 4K monitors and landed on one of those. So in total, that's 6 monitors. But I'm actually glad the free ones didn't work because the resolution was too low and I wouldn't have wanted to buy another one. I just got in this tiny office to figure out some stops I can place on this monitor here to get it at the right height for me because I want it to be adjustable, obviously. And it kind of sticks up there, which is good. But when I got in, apparently it doesn't stick up there enough. And boom, full speed right into the back of my head. That hurt. Wish I caught that on video because it was all for nothing. There's no one step in your builds that you can do that makes more of an impact than lighting. But that doesn't mean that you can just throw any lights on your project and call it a day. Choosing the wrong color temperature lighting can be kind of like putting lipstick on the Mona Lisa. The most important thing is the mood you're trying to go for. Warmer, orangish color temps give you a more relaxed, intimate feel, and higher, bluer color temps give a more energetic and focused feel, kind of like my shop here. I had to go through a few different variations of this desk. First, I used wooden drawer slides, which was a bit, as my grandpa would say, Mickey Mouse. I searched the internet far and wide to find the perfect brackets for this desk and went through a couple of those as well.
My goodness, that was hard. That's great. That's amazing. Yeah, buddy. Let's go. We're nearing the end of the build and thankfully are at the end of the Home Depot runs. The time has come for me to tally up how many times I was forced to resort to Home Uh-oh to save my day. In total, the amount of times I resorted to Home Depot to save my rump was 15. And yes, I agree, that's a glorious waste of time and gas. This is my solution for it being so difficult to get down into the chair of the tiny office. I wanted something I could plant my right hand on and put all my weight on to lower myself down, so I made this thing nice and beefy. That ain't going nowhere.
I tried out a few different door handles and all of them just didn't feel like they belonged on the door. I couldn't get my fingers in the gap, so I cut it down a bit and it turned out to be a perfect low profile option. So how long did it take to build this project? Before I tell you, give me your best guess. Keep in mind that not all of these are full days, but all in all, the amount of days I spent working on this project is 50, which blows my mind to say. Because remember, I had originally thought this would take 3 weeks, and that was estimating generously. So if it took forever, how much did it cost? I did what I could to save, but also wanted to give you guys an awesome project, so it wasn't cheap. In total, this project cost $4,915, and yep, I agree, that's a lot. But that's business, folks, and I don't say any of this to brag, that wouldn't even make sense. In fact, my immediate instinct would be to not say anything, but as I've watched other makers on YouTube in the past, I've been so curious about how much their projects cost and always appreciated the transparency. Well, the time has come for me to polish up and finalize this build. I'm so excited this thing is done. I can't wait to start using it, and more importantly, I can't wait to show it to John and you guys. Here we go.
My man.
Joey, what's going on, my dude?
How you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. Just got back from vacation, getting settled in, caught up on some computer work here.
All right, so it's been a little while since I called you last, but last time I gave you the task of trying to guess what I'm putting under my tiny office. No, I just told him. What an idiot. No, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. You didn't hear that, right?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So what do you think it was?
I thought it was a play area for your kids because we talked about kids a lot, and you know, you mentioned a few things about like colors and like energy and whatnot. So I thought it was. I didn't think your big was going to be crawling under the steps.
Well, just wait. I've been working on this thing for way too long. I just ruined this whole big reveal process. So I'm going to flip the camera around. My wife is going to hold this while I take you on a tour. I give you what you never expected until I told you, the tiny office. Here's the door.
I love the brass accents, dude.
So I bet you're wondering, how the heck does he get in this thing?
I am quite wondering that. Hey, bonus slide.
Oh, he predicted it. Good job. So this thing is nice and solid. I put my weight on that, and then I slide in.
Bro, you're like, it's like sliding into your seat with the Death Star.
Then I go back. I'm liking his reaction. This is good. And then I pull the desk down, slide it out, and then I slide the monitor down.
Real? You gotta be kidding me, dude. The quality and aesthetic of this thing is insane. But this is like, you got some speakeasy vibes.
Yeah.
You got a little Don Draper-esque going on in there with some of the mood lighting. There's books. Who knew you could read?
Lots of books. I can't read. They're my wife's books.
And a plant.
Multiple plants. Because I like oxygen in this tiny office. Oh wait, I forgot to show you the thing that brings oxygen.
Dude, you went a lot. You got ventilation in there.
I got a ventilation fan, baby.
That is insane. That looks so good. That is, bar none, one of the coolest under stair
Items.
I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, buddy, that's what I like to hear.
I'm blown away with the attention to detail. I love the walnut. I love the mortise hinges. I love the brass accents on the door, dude.
Dude, thank you.
You called yourself a rookie. Beginner.
Dude, well, I mean, another woodworker would have been able to do this in like 1 month. It took me like 3, so.
Fantastic job, bud.
Thanks, man. You earned yourself a sponsorship.
Yeah, buddy. That is an inspiring.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
Adult mini office.
Yes, sir.
Is it leather? Or is it like pleather?
It's actually a PETA approved faux leather, so that's one knock against it.
You know, everything's got its perks.
No, I mean the fact that it's PETA approved.
Oh. I just ignored that.
We'll just pretend like that isn't part of it.
Cool, man. That's really well done.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Congratulations on the build and the channel success so far.
Thanks, man.
Look forward to seeing what you're coming up with in the future, bud.
Same to you.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Adios, muchacho. Now time for the final reveal. Real quick, John won by default, so I got to shout out his product, Shop Shades, which are quickly becoming my favorite safety glasses. If you want to look just like me, make sure you check those out with the link in the description. And if you want to win them in an Instagram giveaway, make sure you comment on my latest post. All right, now for the final reveal. I'm not sure you noticed, but did you hear the first thing John said when he saw the tiny office? I love the brass accents. How funny is that? The first thing he appreciated was the result of a huge mistake. The kind of mistake that almost stopped me from even doing this project. I had a ton of slip-ups along the way, but they actually produced something that I think is pretty awesome. I'm thinking that maybe I shouldn't let the fear of messing up keep me from tackling these projects, and what I should do is challenge myself, and I guess make mistakes. Because it seems like that's the way to grow and apparently make a pretty unique project. I'm seeing my inexperience as an opportunity to be creative in the future. What did Bob Ross say? There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. And this build made that clearer than ever. So here's to more happy accidents in the future, folks. And if you want to see a lot more of those, go check out the time I tried to tame water by making a table with a real waterfall. You can guess how that went. Until next time, get up and build.